Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Schlage number 34-302. This is a number 2 bottom pin by Schlage. This is genuine, original Schlage equipment, sold as a pack of 100. So when you buy one, you're literally buying a pack of 100 pins. That's the only way these are sold, and that's pretty typical in the industry that it would certainly not be sold as each. There might be, I would expect that there may be some restricted key systems by other manufacturers that might sell a smaller quantity of pins, but nonetheless, 100 is how these are sold. The dissection of the part number is 34 tells us that it is a cylinder part of some sort. The 3 tells us that it's a bottom pin, and the 02 tells us it's a zero. Pardon me. The 02 tells us that it's a 2 bottom pin. Got one here held in the tweezers. Going to be pretty tough to get the camera to focus on just that. You can see from the way that the light is reflected from the top of the pin that it's not exactly flat. It's not. It's definitely curved. The bottom of the pin, with its 2 angles and the very tip, that's not exactly a point either. That's kind of flattened off as well. All of that conspires. All of the dimensional properties, every dimensional property of the pin conspires to be a Schlage original pin. What I mean by that is there is a link below this video to a document called Key Bitting Specifications. And the easy part of that is it shows you the listing of all the pins and springs. You can see how the part numbers change as the bottom pins change. Part numbers for their master pins, even finger pins if you're doing a Schlage Everest system where you need some finger pins. Even also their top pins. And a lesser known concept is that the length of the top pin or the driver pin is dependent on the pin stack. So you've got a bottom pin that touches the bottom of the key blank, the cut in the key. Okay, you also have master pins. Or you do or you don't have master pins, but you'll always have a bottom pin. The stack height, or the plug total, is just the numerical value of all bottom pins added to all, if any, master pins. That value will be somewhere between 0 and 9. It will never be less than 0, and it will never be more than 9. It can be any number in between there. The length of the top pin needs to be related to that pin height. If you've got a 5 bottom pin and a 2 master pin, well, you've got a stack height of 7. So you'll use the appropriate top pin, the 34103, when you're pinning that chamber, because the amount of pins stuck in the chamber need to be within a certain tolerance for its spring to not be too severely compressed and fail, or not be compressed enough, not allowing the cylinder pins, the pins to drop back into the cylinder plug out of the Bible. The top of that plug is called the Bible. So those top pins are there as well. Now above there is a substantially more complicated drawing, but it really isn't. But that drawing, if you are a locksmith, you very likely are very familiar with that. If you're a locksmith, you may not be, and that's okay. A lot of people term themselves, make a living as locksmiths, but like any other career, there's, you know, a near infinite amount of exploration to do, whether it be locksmithing or, you know, practicing law. I suppose you can always learn more about it, and you can operate as a locksmith without having any idea of what all those dimensions mean, and be quite successful. However, that complicated drawing helps us to illustrate the pin itself, namely the 100-degree dimension that's there, and that's going to be related to the way that the bottom of the pin is treated, with how it's cut like this. If those pins were at a different angle, too sharp or too narrow or too wide, it wouldn't sit in the key right. Next is the .031, the plateau, the very flat part of the key cut, is related to how the tip of that pin is treated. Okay? What's interesting is the bottom pin is not really the important thing, the length of the bottom pin, and this being a 2 bottom pin, our length is 0.195. If I put a caliper on this pin, overall length, caliper is going to be 0.195. Okay. However, the pin length is what we end up at, and what I mean is this: you have an effective plug diameter. The diameter of the plug, that is 0.5 inch for Schlage, as is many others, but not all of them are 0.5. Certainly not. If you've ever keyed different cylinders and you need a different size plug follower, you know, the plug follower you use is way too sloppy in the hole, and you should have you can make it work, but you should have a plug follower with a greater diameter. That's because the effective plug diameter is different. The effective plug diameter is important to know. You'll notice the root depth for a number 2 bottom pin for a number 2 cut on a Schlage key is 0.305. That's the dimension from the root of the key, or the bottom of the key, to the bottom of the cut. If you put a caliper inside of there, it's going to be 0.305. Well, 0.5 minus 0.305, well, that's 0.195, and that's where that comes in. Okay, and that's where, when I say we derive it, that's you know, we know this is the only dimension we work with, because we can take for granted the root depth and the effective plug diameter when you're dealing within the specific system, so there's nothing to really be concerned with. The rest of that diagram is important if you are cutting keys and you're using a machine that doesn't care about the manufacturer name, as long as you've got the proper cutter in the machine, meaning the .031 plateau it will leave and the angle of its cuts is compatible or correct or exactly correct. You will cut your key by knowing the dimension from the stop, the shoulder stop, that dimension, then every center to center of every successive cut, and then knowing your depth. So if you're manually or semi-automatic duplicating a key, you don't care about any of that. You're making a copy. If you are using a code machine that has a code card, okay, you still don't need to know any of that because you're just making it work. But if you've got a machine that just cuts on depth and spacing charts, well, that's where that all comes into play. But it's all really important because all of that math that's on there allows you, to the experienced eye, to really be able to understand more fully the keying system by Schlage. It's center-to-center spacing, how many cuts, what possibilities of depths are there, all give you an understanding of physically what's capable out of the cylinder. What can you expect? Most importantly, change keys. You know, what type of system is it? This is a two-step system. It will give you parity. And not to get into the weeds too deep on locksmithing, but that chart is really handy to draw on. Maybe you just want the part number for the numbers 6 master pin. Okay, great. As you maybe go into locksmithing further and further, you can draw on that resource and say, I need to know what the max is, the MACS, etc. Okay, and the fact that it's a 0.15 increment system. I have a universal kit behind me. That universal kit is made specifically, or I like the term homogenized, to be compatible with lots of different key systems. Okay, however, the treatment of those pins have been averaged out to work in those different key systems, and it is very compatible with Schlage and many other manufacturers. And I have been keying with that kit personally. That kit is over 20 years old, for sure. And the reason I own it is because I don't want to own a Schlage kit, then a Yale kit, then a Sargent kit, then a Corbin Russwin kit, then a Dexter, then a Falcon, then a Weiser. You see the point. That universal kit allows me to do a lot of different systems right out of it. However, I can tell you that if I was working only in Schlage, I would only have a Schlage kit and I would only buy Schlage original pins, because all of the dimensional properties, the geometries of the original equipment in the original cylinders is going to give you the best overall experience when pinning the kit, the work. This client in particular, he buys from me original cylinders, original pins, original key blanks, because he has only a Schlage system in his moderate size facility. He is never going to bump into keying a Kwikset or anything else, at least during his work hours. He is not a locksmith, but he possesses the knowledge, skill, and experience to fully repin and maintain his system. His system is not so large that he gets himself in trouble with not understanding the finer rules of master keying, and that's okay. And he does probably not fully appreciate how smooth it goes when you're using original equipment than using a not an off-brand, but a third-party brand for making your pins for you, and that's perfect. His experience would certainly be a lot different if he was using a universal kit, which to him would give no advantage. So the point of that all is, if you're working a Schlage system exclusively, buy only Schlage pins, even though they do cost a lot more money, noticeably more money. But if you're a locksmith, and not a locksmith, but if you're someone who has a better, deeper understanding of locksmithing, I couldn't dissuade you from using a universal kit, but for so many people, the original equipment is really the way to go. Okay. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Schlage products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I'm quite partial to Schlage because it's the first lock system that I really became familiar with, but also because I'm partial to the quality on many of their locks. Not all of them. Some I like more than others. Some I don't really care for. That's true of any lock line. But what really is above average and worthy of note is the responsiveness of the technical support department. I send an email about every 2 weeks to a particular person there who always responds. And it is so crucial when helping support people who make a living supporting their product. Okay, the end user, the locksmith. There are people that are authors of locksmithing articles that I have spoken to, know of, taken classes given by, all the way up to people who make a living as a locksmith but are new to the industry, maybe a year. And the ability of the factory to support their product in such a professional way is what sets Schlage apart. Any questions on the Schlage 34-302 number 2 bottom pin or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.